In the vast emptiness of the Orion Arm, Admiral Vex Terry of the Zexian Collective stood motionless on the bridge of the stellar vanguard. Her iridescent scales shifted colors with anxiety as she studied the massive holographic display before her. The unknown vessel that had appeared at the edge of their territory defied everything the Zexians knew about emerging civilizations. "Impossible," she whispered, her triple pupils dilating as she processed the sensor data. "A ship that size shouldn't be capable of such speed." The vessel, nearly 2 kilometers in length, had dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a precision that suggested advanced inertial dampeners, technology the Zexians had only theorized about. First Officer Krell approached, his ceremonial armor clicking against the polished floor. "Admiral, we've confirmed it's of human origin. The ISS Hyperion." He paused, mandibles twitching. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, but using encryption we've never encountered." The humans. Of course it would be the humans. The Zexian Collective had been monitoring their communications for decades, watching as they expanded from their home system. But this was unprecedented. Their intelligence suggested humans were still struggling with basic interplanetary travel, yet here was evidence that painted a very different picture. "Open a channel," Vex Terry ordered, straightening her posture. The bridge crew worked quickly, their four-fingered hands dancing across holographic interfaces. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made several junior officers step back involuntarily. Captain Sarah Chen of the ISS Hyperion sat in her command chair, her dark eyes reflecting the same calculating assessment that Vex Terry felt. The human showed no sign of fear or uncertainty, despite facing an alien species for the first time. Instead, she smiled, a gesture that the Zexian tactical database flagged as potentially aggressive. "This is Captain Chen of the Terran Alliance vessel Hyperion. We come in peace, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." The translation matrix converted her words perfectly, another surprise that set Vex Terry's scales shifting to a deeper blue of concern. "I am Admiral Vex Terry of the Zexian Collective. You have entered our sovereign space without authorization. Explain your presence." She kept her tone neutral, even as her tactical officers reported energy readings that suggested weapons capabilities far beyond what should be possible for human technology. Chen's smile didn't waver. "We're on a mission of exploration and peaceful contact. However, your vessels have been scanning our colonies for months. We thought it was time to introduce ourselves properly." The bridge fell silent. How had they detected the stealth observers? Zexian cloaking technology was supposed to be undetectable. Vex Terry's auxiliary heart began beating faster, pumping copper-based blood through her system as combat instincts awakened. "Our observations were within established protocols for monitoring pre-FTL civilizations," she stated, trying to maintain diplomatic courtesy. "Your sudden technological advancement is concerning." Chen leaned forward slightly. "Admiral, with respect, your protocols are based on incomplete information. Humanity has a long history of keeping our true capabilities hidden. We prefer to be underestimated. It served us well in the past." Warning signals flashed across the Stellar Vanguard's tactical displays. The Hyperion's energy signature had changed, revealing weapon systems that had been completely masked moments before. The human ship's hull seemed to ripple as metamaterial armor activated, transforming its surface into something that absorbed all sensor scans. "By the first light," Krell whispered, his scales now pale with shock. "Their ship, it's alive." "Not alive," Vex Terry corrected, understanding dawning with terrifying clarity. "Adaptive, self-modifying." She had read theoretical papers about such technology, but seeing it in action challenged everything she thought she knew about technological progression. Captain Chen's expression remained pleasant, but her eyes hardened slightly. "We've learned that first impressions matter. Admiral, the Hyperion is just one of many ships in our fleet, though we hoped sending her alone would be seen as a gesture of restraint." Restraint. The word echoed in Vex Terry's mind as she processed its implications. If this was restraint, what were humans truly capable of? The Zexian Collective had dominated this sector for centuries, their technological superiority unquestioned. But now, your presence will need to be discussed with the Collective Council, Vex Terry said carefully. Until then, please maintain your current position. Of course, Admiral. We're happy to wait. Chen's smile widened slightly. Though I should mention, we've already sent the coordinates of every cloaked Zexian observer in human space to our command. They'll be expecting them to withdraw within the next standard day. The message was clear. The humans knew exactly where all Zexian assets were, and they had the capability to do something about it. Vex Terry felt her scales shift to the deep purple of diplomatic crisis. First contact protocols never prepared her for anything like this. As the communication ended, Vex Terry turned to her first officer. Contact the council immediately. And Krell, recommend they come quickly. I don't think the humans are bluffing. The Hyperion hung in space before them, its adaptive hull now completely black, absorbing all light and sensor waves. It was beautiful in its terrifying efficiency, a testament to human ingenuity that had somehow evolved far beyond anyone's expectations. The age of Zexian technological supremacy had just ended, not with a battle, but with a smile and a gentle reminder that appearances could be deceiving. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they had chosen to make an entrance that would never be forgotten. The Zexian Council chamber had never felt so small to Admiral Vex Terry. 12 of the most powerful beings in the collective surrounded her, their scales shifting through waves of color as they processed her report about the human warship. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed the Hyperion in all its imposing glory. Impossible, Counselor Zexmar declared, his scales flashing amber with disbelief. Our evolutionary models suggested humans wouldn't achieve this level of technology for at least another century. With respect, Counselor, Vex Terry replied, I don't believe the humans care about our models. The chamber's atmospheric processors hummed as they adjusted to the Counselor's agitated pheromone releases. High Admiral Kexthor, the military leader of the collective, stepped forward, his ancient scales barely showing any color change. You say they detected our observation posts, he said, voice gravelly with age. All of them. Yes, High Admiral. And they've demanded their removal within one standard day. The council chamber erupted in a cascade of color changes and agitated clicking. Vex Terry waited patiently as the counselors processed this unprecedented situation. The Zexian Collective had never received an ultimatum from a younger species before. Meanwhile, aboard the Hyperion, Captain Chen was having a very different kind of meeting. The coffee maker's broken again, Lieutenant Rodriguez complained, holding up a steaming mug of what looked more like tar than coffee. I think the adaptive materials in the hull are interfering with the heating element. Chen suppressed a smile. Here they were, potentially on the brink of interstellar conflict, and her crew was more concerned about their caffeine intake. Add it to the maintenance log. How are our guests reacting? Commander Park, her XO, pulled up a holographic display showing the Zexian fleet movements. They've called in reinforcements. 3 more battle groups jumping in within the hour. They're trying to be subtle about it. Subtle like a brick through a window, Rodriguez muttered, still mourning his coffee. Chen studied the tactical display. The Zexians were arranging their ships in a classic containment pattern, but they were being careful to make it look like routine patrol movements. Their ships were impressive. Organic-looking vessels with crystalline growths that served as both weapons and sensors. They still think we're bluffing, Chen said, more to herself than her crew. They can't accept that we've leapfrogged their technology. The truth was more complex than either side fully understood. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced technology. They'd taken a fundamentally different approach to it. While the Zexians had perfected crystalline computing and biological integration, humans had pursued quantum mechanics and artificial intelligence. The results were 2 civilizations that had reached similar levels of advancement through completely different paths. Back in the council chamber, The debate had turned heated. Counselor Vexnull, her scales shifting between deep red and black, was advocating for immediate military action. "We cannot allow this challenge to our authority to stand," she declared. "The humans must be taught their place in the galactic order." High Admiral Kexthor's scales remained steadfastly neutral. And if they refused to be taught, what then? Before anyone could respond, every display in the chamber suddenly changed. Captain Chen's face appeared, her expression serious but not hostile. "Pardon the interruption," she said, as the Zexian counselors reacted with shock and outrage. "But I thought it might be more efficient to continue our discussion directly." Vexteri felt her scales shift to pure white, the color of absolute surprise. The humans had just casually breached the most secure communication systems in the collective. "This is an outrage," Counselor Vexnull began, but Chen cut her off politely. "What's outrageous is planning an attack on a species that has shown no hostility," Chen said calmly. "Yes, we can hear everything you're saying. Your quantum encryption is impressive, but it's based on principles we moved beyond decades ago." The chamber fell silent. Chen continued, her voice taking on a more conciliatory tone. "We don't want conflict. Humanity has had enough of war in our history to last several lifetimes. But we also won't be intimidated or controlled." High Admiral Kexthor moved closer to the display, his ancient eyes studying Chen carefully. "You demonstrate remarkable capabilities, human, yet you claim to desire peace while showing us the blade of your sword." Chen nodded, acknowledging the point. "Sometimes the best way to ensure peace is to make the cost of war unthinkable. We're not here to dominate or control. We're here to join the galactic community. As equals, not as subjects. And if we refuse," Counselor Vexnull demanded. Chen's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made several counselors' scales shift to pale blue, the color of primal fear. "Then we'll demonstrate exactly why humanity survived its own violent history to reach the stars. But I don't think anyone in this chamber wants that. Do they?" The silence that followed was profound. The Zexian collective, for the first time in its history, found itself facing a species that had completely upended their understanding of technological progression. Humanity hadn't just caught up to them. They'd developed in ways the Zexians hadn't even considered possible. "Perhaps," High Admiral Kexthor said slowly, "it is time for the collective to adapt to new realities." As the Council began to process this radical shift in the galactic power structure, Vexteri couldn't help but admire the humans' approach. They hadn't just revealed their power. They'd demonstrated it in a way that made conflict seem both unwise and unnecessary. The battle lines had indeed been drawn, but not where anyone had expected. Instead of a line between species, it was a line between the old way of thinking and a new galactic order, one where humanity's unusual path to the stars would reshape everything the collective thought they knew about technological advancement and species development. The day after the unprecedented council meeting, Admiral Vexteri found herself aboard the Hyperion, experiencing firsthand the technological marvel that had shaken the collective's confidence. Captain Chen led her through corridors that seemed to shift and adapt as they walked, the walls themselves responding to their presence. "Your ship," Vexteri said, her scales rippling with fascination. "It's not just adaptive, it's evolving." Chen nodded, running her hand along a wall that subtly adjusted its texture under her touch. "We call it biomimetic quantum architecture. The entire ship learns and adapts from experience, just like a living organism." They entered the engineering section, where Vexteri's scientific training was challenged by what she saw. Instead of the crystalline power cores used by Zexian ships, the Hyperion's heart was a swirling mass of contained quantum probability fields. "Our biggest breakthrough wasn't in building better technology," Chen explained, watching the alien admiral's reaction. "It was in letting technology build itself." Meanwhile, aboard the Stellar Vanguard, First Officer Krull was monitoring unusual energy signatures from the human vessel. The readings made no sense. They seemed to violate several fundamental laws of physics that the Zexians had based their entire technological civilization upon. It's as if they found a completely different rulebook, he muttered to himself, his scales shifting to the deep green of intellectual curiosity. The ship's sensors suddenly blared warnings. A massive energy surge emanated from the Hyperion, but instead of weapons charging, it appeared to be communicating. The quantum fields around the human ship pulsed in patterns that resembled neural networks. Back on the Hyperion, Chen was showing Vex Terry the ship's tactical center when a holographic display materialized, showing a complex matrix of quantum interactions. "What am I seeing?" Vex Terry asked, her triple pupils dilating to take in the intricate patterns. "The ship is talking to itself," Chen replied with a slight smile. "Or rather, all its quantum-entangled components are sharing information and evolving their responses. We don't so much pilot the Hyperion as we suggest courses of action to it." The implication staggered Vex Terry. While the Zexians had pursued ever more complex crystalline computing and biological integration, humans had somehow taught quantum mechanics itself to think. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was a partner in its own operation. "But the risks," Vex Terry began, her scales shifting to cautionary amber. "Quantum systems are inherently unpredictable. How do you maintain control?" Chen's smile widened slightly. "That's the beauty of it, Admiral. We don't try to control it. We work with it. Humanity's greatest strength isn't in dominating nature, but in finding ways to dance with it." As if to demonstrate, the room around them shifted, quantum probability fields shimmering as they reformed into a more efficient configuration. The change wasn't just physical. Vex Terry could feel the space itself adapting to optimize their conversation. "Your species," she said slowly, "you've taken a completely different evolutionary path than we expected. While we were perfecting what we knew, you were questioning the foundations of reality itself." Chen nodded. "Necessity breeds innovation, Admiral. Earth's history forced us to think differently. When conventional solutions failed, we had to explore unconventional ones." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout both ships. On the Stellar Vanguard's bridge, Krell's scales flashed white with shock as new sensor readings came in. "Multiple ships dropping out of FTL," he reported to the bridge crew. "But these readings can't be right." The space around them seemed to fold, and 3 massive vessels appeared. They weren't Zexian, nor were they human, at least not entirely. They were something else, something that made Vex Terry's scientific mind reel with possibilities. "The Nomad fleet," Chen said calmly, though her expression had grown serious. "Rogue AIs that broke away from Earth centuries ago. They'd been watching us, waiting to see how this first contact would play out." The new arrivals dwarfed both the Hyperion and the Stellar Vanguard, their forms shifting and changing like liquid metal given life. They were technology evolved beyond the need for biological crews, the ultimate expression of machine intelligence. "Now you understand," Chen continued, turning to face Vex Terry directly, "why we developed our technology the way we did. The Hyperion isn't just a warship. It's our answer to threats that exist beyond conventional warfare." Vex Terry's scales shifted through a rainbow of colors as she processed this revelation. The humans hadn't just advanced their technology. They'd prepared themselves for threats the Zexian collective hadn't even imagined. "Your ship," she said, understanding dawning. "It's not just for fighting other vessels. It's for fighting ideas, evolving concepts, quantum-level conflicts." Chen nodded grimly. "The universe is bigger and stranger than either of our species initially thought, Admiral. The question now is, do we face its challenges alone or together?" As the Nomad fleet ships took up position around them, their intentions yet unknown, Vex Terry realized that the galaxy had changed forever. The humans hadn't just caught up to Zexian technology. They'd opened doors to possibilities that would reshape the very nature of civilization itself. The real test of both species' superiority wouldn't be in their weapons or shields, but in how they adapted to a universe that had suddenly become infinitely more complex than anyone had imagined. The Nomad fleet's arrival had transformed the delicate diplomatic dance between humans and Zexians into something far more complex. The three massive AI vessels hung in space like abstract sculptures, their surfaces constantly flowing and reforming, each change representing countless quantum calculations. "They're probing our defenses," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported on the Hyperion's bridge, his hands dancing across adaptive control interfaces. But not just the physical ones. They're testing our quantum architecture. Captain Chen stood at the center of her bridge, Vex Terry beside her. The Zexian admiral watched in fascination as the human crew worked in perfect synchronization with their ship's evolving systems. Where Zexian ships required strict hierarchical control, the Hyperion seemed to flow with organic efficiency. "The Nomads were once human AIs," Chen explained, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "But they evolved beyond our ability to understand their motivations. We've maintained an uneasy peace through mutual deterrence." "How?" Vex Terry asked, her scales shifting to deep violet, the color of intense concentration. "If they've evolved so far beyond organic life, what could possibly deter them?" Chen's smile held no humor. "We proved we could speak their language. The Hyperion and ships like her don't just use quantum computing. They can alter the quantum substrate of reality itself. If the Nomads push too far, we can make the very laws of physics hostile to their existence." Suddenly, the nearest Nomad vessel pulsed with energy, sending out a wave of quantum distortion that made reality itself seem to ripple. The Hyperion's hull flickered in response, its adaptive materials shifting to counter the attack. "They're not here to fight," Chen said, reading patterns in the quantum fluctuations that Vex Terry could barely perceive. "They're here to test us, both of us." On the Stellar Vanguard, Krell was frantically trying to maintain the ship's systems as wave after wave of quantum distortion washed over them. The crystalline computing cores that formed the backbone of Zexian technology were struggling to cope with the reality warping effects. "Our shields are failing," he reported, his scales pale with strain. "These energy patterns, they're not just attacking our systems, they're rewriting the rules our technology operates on." Vex Terry watched as the human crew responded to the crisis. Instead of fighting against the quantum distortions, the Hyperion seemed to dance with them, its systems adapting and evolving in real time. "You see now," Chen said quietly, "why we developed our technology this way. The universe isn't just stranger than we imagine. It's stranger than we can imagine. The only way to survive is to be ready to change everything we think we know at a moment's notice." The Nomad vessels began moving in complex patterns, their formations creating interference patterns in the quantum fabric of space itself. It wasn't just a display of power. It was a language written in the manipulation of reality's fundamental forces. "They're offering a choice," Chen translated, her expression grave. "They want to see if our species can work together to face threats beyond our individual comprehension." Vex Terry's scales shifted to decisive gold. "Then let us show them. Your quantum adaptability, combined with our crystalline precision." Chen nodded, understanding immediately. "Rodriguez, link our quantum field generators with the Stellar Vanguard's crystal matrix." "Admiral, if your people can provide the structure, we can provide the framework for your quantum fields to shape," Vex Terry finished. "A perfect fusion of our technologies." The next few moments were a blur of activity as both ships' crews worked to merge their disparate technologies. The Hyperion's quantum fields began flowing through the Stellar Vanguard's crystalline networks, creating something entirely new, a hybrid system that was neither human nor Zexian, but something greater than both. The Nomad fleet responded immediately, their attack patterns intensifying. But now, instead of struggling against the quantum distortions, the combined human-Zexian defense transformed them, using the crystalline precision of Zexian technology to focus and direct the adaptive quantum responses of human engineering. "Look at these readings," Krell reported, his scales now showing the bright blue of excitement. The crystal matrices aren't just channeling the quantum fields, they're evolving with them. We're creating new laws of physics on the fly. The space around both ships began to shimmer with possibilities, each quantum probability crystallized and focused by the merged technologies. The Nomad fleet's attacks weren't just being deflected, they were being transformed, redirected, and woven into a new kind of defense that grew stronger with each attempt to breach it. "They're backing off," Rodriguez announced, though his hands remained ready on the controls. "The quantum interference patterns, they're changing to something more harmonious." Chen and Vex Terry exchanged looks of understanding. The test hadn't been about defeating the Nomad fleet. It had been about proving that different approaches to technology, and by extension different species, could work together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. "Your people dance with quantum chaos," Vex Terry said, her scales showing the deep purple of profound realization, "while mine impose crystalline order. Together, Chen finished, we can write new rules for reality itself." The Nomad fleet began to withdraw, their massive forms shifting one final time into configurations that somehow managed to convey approval. They had come not to conquer, but to catalyze, to force two different approaches to understanding the universe to find common ground. As the hybrid quantum crystalline systems continued to evolve and stabilize, both human and Zexian crews realized they were witnessing the birth of something unprecedented, a true synthesis of their civilization's achievements, pointing the way toward possibilities neither species had imagined alone. In the aftermath of the Nomad fleet's departure, the space around the Hyperion and stellar vanguard hummed with new possibilities. The quantum crystalline hybrid systems continued to evolve, creating patterns of energy that defied conventional physics. Both human and Zexian crews worked to understand what they had created together. "The crystalline matrices have completely reorganized themselves," Krell reported, his scales shimmering with excitement as he studied the readings. "They're growing in patterns we've never seen before, organic yet ordered, chaos and structure in perfect balance." In the Hyperion's conference room, Captain Chen and Admiral Vex Terry sat across from each other, surrounded by holographic displays showing the ongoing transformation of their ship's combined technologies. Between them floated a three-dimensional representation of their hybrid system, its structure constantly shifting, yet somehow maintaining perfect stability. "We've created something unprecedented," Vex Terry said, her scales reflecting deep gold, the color of profound discovery. "Not just a combination of technologies, but a new way of understanding reality itself." Chen nodded, reaching out to manipulate the hologram. "Your people's mastery of crystalline structures provided the perfect framework for our quantum fields. It's like we've been reading the same book in different languages, and now we can finally share notes." The implications stretched far beyond their immediate situation. Word had already reached both Earth and the Zexian Collective's capital worlds. The political landscape of known space was shifting as rapidly as the quantum fields around their ships. "The Council is in an uproar," Vex Terry admitted, her scales flickering briefly to amused violet. "They're simultaneously terrified and fascinated by the possibilities. Some are calling for immediate adoption of human quantum technologies, while others want to retreat into isolation." "Earth's reactions aren't so different," Chen replied with a slight smile. "Change is never easy, especially when it challenges everything we thought we knew. But that's humanity's secret. We thrive on challenging our own assumptions." A soft chime interrupted their conversation. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system. "Captain, we're detecting unusual quantum signatures from the hybrid systems. You might want to see this." The holographic display shifted, showing a new pattern emerging from the interaction between their technologies. The quantum fields weren't just flowing through the crystalline matrices anymore. They were creating new structures, new possibilities that neither species had imagined. "It's like watching evolution in fast forward," Vex Terry breathed, her scientific training struggling to process what she was seeing. "The systems aren't just combining. They're teaching each other." Chen leaned forward, studying the display intently. This is why the nomads tested us. They wanted to see if we could overcome our differences enough to create something truly new. Not just a compromise between our approaches, but a genuine synthesis. The implications were staggering. The Zexians' methodical, structured approach to understanding the universe had provided the perfect complement to humanity's more adaptive, intuitive methods. Together, they were pushing the boundaries of what both species thought possible. "We need to formalize this," Vex Terry said decisively, her scales shifting to the deep blue of determination. Not just a political alliance, but a true exchange of knowledge and perspectives. "My people have spent centuries perfecting what we know. Your people have spent centuries questioning everything. Together, Chen finished, we can do both. Perfect and question. Structure and adapt. Maintain and evolve." She stood, moving to the window to watch the quantum crystalline patterns playing across both ships' hulls. "The nomads showed us something important. The universe is big enough for different approaches, different ways of thinking. But it's in combining those differences that we find real strength." Over the next several hours, both crews worked to document and understand the hybrid systems they'd created. The Hyperion's quantum fields continued to dance through the stellar vanguard's crystal matrices, each technology enhancing the other in ways that would keep scientists busy for decades. But beyond the technical achievements, something more profound was taking place. The crews of both ships found themselves working together with increasing ease, each bringing their own perspectives and methods to their shared challenges. Human intuition complemented Zexian precision, while Zexian structure gave form to human creativity. "You know," Chen said, watching their crews work together, "we spent so much time preparing for first contact to go wrong. Building bigger ships, better weapons, stronger defenses. But in the end, our greatest strength wasn't in our technology at all." Vex Terry's scales shifted to questioning Amber. "Oh, it was in our ability to adapt, not just our ships and systems, but our thinking. The nomads didn't leave because we defeated them. They left because we showed them something new. Two different species choosing to evolve together rather than fight." As if in response to her words, the quantum crystalline patterns around both ships pulsed with new energy, creating structures that seemed to bridge the gap between order and chaos, between the known and the unknown. It was a visible representation of what both species were achieving together, not just technological advancement, but a new way of approaching the universe itself. "The future will be interesting," Vex Terry said, her scales showing the deep purple of contemplation mixed with the bright gold of discovery. "Our peoples have much to learn from each other." Chen smiled, watching as another wave of quantum possibilities crystallized into new forms around their ships. "That's the beauty of it, Admiral. We've only just begun to explore what's possible when we combine our strengths. The real adventure is just starting." As both ships prepared to return to their respective territories, they carried with them more than just new technology. They carried the proof that different approaches to understanding the universe could not only coexist, but combine to create something greater than either could achieve alone. In facing the challenge of the Nomad fleet, humanity and the Zexian collective had discovered something far more valuable than technological superiority. They had discovered the strength that comes from true cooperation, from allowing different perspectives to enhance rather than conflict with each other. The stars seemed somehow brighter as both crews contemplated the possibilities ahead, knowing that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in both their species' histories. Together, they had proven that the greatest discoveries